Hi everyone. So lately I've been getting into black and white photography, and when I go out on my photo walks and do some street photography, I normally like to take my Olympus PenF because it has the monochrome creative dial feature here that I can dial in and use the monochrome profiles that really you can only get on the PenF. And I was wondering, am I able to duplicate this look that you can get from the PenF onto the OMD E-M10 Mark II? And by extension, probably all of the OMDs and other pen cameras as well. And I would say I was able to do that about 90-95% because the Olympus PenF has 3 monochrome profiles. They have monochrome profile 1, monochrome profile number 2, and monochrome profile number 3. And of these 3, you can tweak additional settings that you're not going to find on any other camera. One being you can apply grain, low, medium, high. And you can also apply midtones on the shadows, not just highlight in shadows, but you can also adjust the midtones on the curve, I should say. And you can also add or subtract some vignettes. So you can make the corners a little darker or make the corners a little bit lighter. And these are things that you can only do in camera on the PenF. But that said, not a lot of people are into grain on their photos anyway. They just want to kind of get that punchy black and white image. And then there's one other setting, the monochrome profile 3, that I don't think is available on any other OMD camera or Olympus camera for that matter. And I'll talk about that last. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll talk about monochrome profile 1 and 2. So the first thing I'm going to show you are the PenF monochrome profiles 1, 2, and 3 with their default settings. So the first picture here is monochrome profile 1 at default, then number 2 with default, and number 3 with default settings. And if we punch in, this is where we can really see the difference, right? This is a nice clean black and white image. This one here has a lot of grain applied, but there's also some highlight and shadow adjustments as well. And then finally the last one, we have a little bit of grain as well, just a light. This is the low setting. But a red filter has been applied because if you look at the clown's nose, it should be red, but it's been pretty much bleached out here. Now the good news is monochrome profile number 1 is identical to all of the Olympus cameras monochrome setting. So there's really no changes or tweaking that we need to do. So I'll just show you a quick comparison. On the left, we have the E-M10 Mark II in the default monochrome setting, and then on the right, we have the default PenF monochrome setting, profile 1. And as you can see, there's absolutely really no difference that I could see. Even if we pixel peep in, you can see that they are virtually identical. Now let's compare the standard OMD monochrome profile to PenF monochrome profile number 2. On the left side, we still have the OMD standard monochrome output, but on the right, we have the PenF monochrome profile 2 without the grain being applied. So I turned the grain off, but other than that, that was the only change I made. And right away, you can already tell that the blacks look a little blacker and the whites are a little brighter. And let's just punch in real quick and take a quick look. And as you can see, like on the collar here, I can still see a lot of tones and gradation here, whereas on the collar here, it's pretty much blown out. And if we go a little further down, again, I can see a very fine gradation here on the OMD, but on the PenF, there's still some there, but it's been washed out a little bit. And then look at the blacks here versus the blacks on the OMD. Definitely the blacks have been crushed. So there's definitely some very strong curve adjustments being done here. Same thing with the fender. You can see, I can still see some tones here on the fender versus on this fender on the PenF, it's all been blown out. Now let's look at the monochrome profile 3. And basically what that was doing was applying a red filter. So I applied a red filter to the OMD monochrome image in camera. And you can still see this red M here on the Mach 5. But on the Olympus PenF, the red has been completely washed out. So the red filter on the PenF is much stronger and adjustable. And there's actually a wheel there where you can fine tune how much filtering you want, and also what colors you want to filter. So that's something that's very unique to the PenF that you're not going to be able to do on any other Olympus camera that I'm aware of. Let's go back to monochrome profile number 2 on the PenF, which is here on the right, but on the left is actually the straight out of camera output from the OMD camera. And as you can see, I was able to pretty much duplicate what the PenF does. And it's a simple tone adjustment in highlights and shadows. So all you do is a +6 on the highlights and a -6 on the shadows, and you get virtually the same look. And if we just kind of punch in a little bit, you can see that the highlights are pretty much equal, and then also the blacks and the dark tones are pretty much the same. The PenF seems to be just a tad darker. When I punch in, let's look over here. It's probably very hard to tell online, but if you look at the background here, the midtones on the PenF are just a hair darker. So what you might be able to do in addition to the highlight shadow adjustment is to just dial in maybe 1/3 of a stop negative exposure comp, but really you don't need to do that. I think this is really close. So we're about 95% there on monochrome profile 2 without the grain. All right, so let's take a look at the monochrome profile number 2 from the PenF with the default settings, which includes a heavy grain. And if you look at these images, the PenF is here on the right, and again, the OMD is on the left. They're really, really close. And I was able to apply grain on the OMD image straight out of camera using the Grainy Art filter. And a few other tweaks that you have to do. But if you look at the tones, it's very, very close now. I was able to pretty much imitate what the PenF was doing. The only real difference really is in the sharpness. The grainy filter on the OMDs apply a little bit of softness to the image. So that's something I wasn't able to work around. But when you kind of back off, if you're going to print this or share this online, really I don't think anyone would really be able to tell the difference in a blind test looking at them just like this. So let's move on to the camera, and I'm going to show you the settings on how to get the monochrome profile number 2 with and without the grain filter applied. Now we're in the camera, and I'm in one of the picture modes. In this case, I'm in aperture priority as indicated by the capital A in the bottom left. But let's go into the super control panel, and the only thing you have to do is set the camera to monotone right here. And you just do that by rotating the front dial. Normally you're in natural, and you just rotate that over to monotone. And that's all we have to do there. And then what you need to do next is the function 2 button on the top of your camera right next to the front dial. By default is your highlight and shadow adjustments. So I'm just going to push that button, and that'll bring up the highlight and shadow menu. And then all I have to do is rotate the rear dial for the shadows to be -6. So I'm turning this clockwise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the highlights 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by rotating the front dial on the camera. And that's all we have to do. So we'll just hit OK. And now we've pretty much duplicated the monochrome profile number 2 on the PenF without the grain being applied. Now to add grain to the image like the PenF does, we have to apply the art filter. So let's go back into the super control panel and rotate the picture mode until we get to grainy film, which is art number 5. And you can see it says grainy film at the top, and we're on art filter number 5. So depending on which OMD camera, it may be a different art number, but all you have to do is select the grainy film. And then we need to go into the menu, and shooting menu number 1 right here, we'll go into picture mode, and then I'm going to click the right arrow on the D-pad, select grainy film, then click the right arrow again to go into the grainy film options. And the one we want to use is grainy filter type number 2, and that's where it's set now. But if it's not on grainy 2, and it's indicated because you can see that the Roman number 2 is highlighted, we just have to change it here by moving around with our D-pad. So that's if we want to select one, but we'll select two and click OK. And if we want to, we can go in and add some vignette, a white vignette, or add a frame effect, which is kind of cool. But let's just leave that off for now. All right, and that's it. And as you can see, I left the grainy art filter 2 on, and you can apply art filters in video if you wanted to get a little creative as well. And I also have another tutorial on shooting in black and white that goes over all the different color filters and tints and special effects, and also some on partial color. And I'll put a link to that below or somewhere here. As always, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.